for the confirmation of the order of the meeting. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Bruce. All those in favour say aye.
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 Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting, surf delivery meeting on the 18th of August. Are there any items that people want to correct or alter? Claire, you're shaking your head. That's fantastic. Can mover and a seconder, please, that they be a true and correct record. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Elwyn. All those in favour say aye. Okay,
Aye.
moving on to the Water Services Quarterly Report, and we have Martin with us. Good morning, Martin. It's great to see you. You might need to pull your microphone down a little bit closer. Yeah, they're finding it hard to hear. Yeah, the boomers are all right. It's the Zoomers that are having a hard hearing. Thanks, Martin. The floor is yours.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Chairperson. Morning, councillors. So I'll take the report as read, but then go for a few key points. So obviously, of the particular note, there was quite a significant reduction in our COMs during the period due to COVID. So people were sat home not finding things wrong, so that was good. The Water Reform MOU that was signed and returned to the Department of Internal Affairs, and a report on the delivery plan is following this report at the next stage of that. The date of the 19th to 21st of October has been set for the short-term resource consent hearing for Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant, and I think that will be at the Cambridge Raceway is the location of that hearing. The Pukerimu water scheme issues is quite a wordy description of what happened there, and to shorten that, I suppose, in concise, there's a piece of equipment that is used to suck the air out of the scour pipes when those pipes are emptied, which had been removed. So when we completely drained the pipes to turn over to the new pipes, air got entrapped in the scour pipes, which we continued to suck through. And that piece of equipment has been in and out several times over the 30, 40 years the plant's been there. So yeah, we've now got a note on the wall, laminated, that just do not remove. Yeah. For the next person in 15 years' time when we do it again. I say it's a rare occurrence when we emptied the pipe and there was no knowledge of that issue, but we've learned.
Martin, I thought it was great. You took us to have a look, and we saw this piece of pipe, and you went back to an ex-employee and said, hey, what's this pipe for? And he said, yep, we had the same trouble 15 or 18 years ago, and this is what had happened. So I can see why you've got a laminated sheet saying, do not cut the pipe off.
Yeah, it was a consultant who designed the original plant and still works for the same company. He was called 15 years ago by us when we had this problem, and he came and, I bet you've removed my pipe, and they had. They reinstalled it, and it's been taken away again since. And when we called him this time, he still works for the same consultancy firm. He said, before he left the office, he said, I bet you've removed my pipe again. Lesson learned, hopefully.
Nah, really good, really good.
The water services restructure has been completed, and recruitment of new roles underway. We've recruited the 4 team leaders in the new structure, and that's good. Makes my workload less, and we're now recruiting the next tier of people. So we're 4 down out of, I think, 11 or 12 vacancies we had. So we're slowly moving through that and getting some good people. So that's good. And I think 3 of the 4 team leaders were internal applicants, which is good. Another thing I was asked to talk about was the odour control at Taylor Street Pump Station, which isn't in the report, but there was a question around what we're doing with the odour control at Taylor Street in Cambridge. So over the past 2 years, we've been chemical dosing, and we've to control the odour. And the odour in the network is due to the long residence time. The wastewater goes septic if it takes a long time to get from A to B, and coming all the way from Cambridge North, which doesn't seem far from a wastewater network, it takes over 24 hours to get to Taylor Street, and so it starts to go off and smell. So we've been using chemical dosing to try and control that. varying degrees of success. Some of the chemicals we used impacted on the treatment plant and caused issues there, so we had to stop using them and change. But more recently, we've stopped chemical dosing and have gone on a different tact. And for the last 3 months, we've been introducing water at the furthest wastewater pump station in Cambridge North, which sounds not to make sense, but it's like introducing our normal networks have I&I, infiltration from the rain, and the network's been designed, has been designed to accommodate for I&I, hence that it's large, the pipes are large, and we've not got all the flow yet from Cambridge North. So that's why the long residence time. So by introducing some false inflow, we're getting less residence time. And since we've been doing that the last 3 months, the odor complaints have certainly reduced, and the monitoring we've done has shown a reduction in the H2S, which is the hydrogen sulfide which causes the odor. So we're monitoring that as we go, and that seems to be successful. And we're also replacing the lids at Taylor Street Pump Station to sealed ones, because even though all they're doing, pump stations still smell, and that is a large one, so we're putting sealed lids there to stop any odour coming out of the pump station.
This is a bit left field, but I was reading in Sideswipe just this last week, that's the Herald, that page column, and town, I don't know where, had this very similar issue, and what they actually did was got everyone to flush their loos at the same time, like they asked it, but it worked. It actually pushed it through and solved the problem.
We don't probably want everybody doing that at the same time.
Yeah, Martin.
But it's a similar process. Yeah.
Martin, before you came on board with the Waters team, I think Tony was explaining that the size of the pipe is designed for all that development, and until it gets critical mass, i.e. the water coming down, there's a lot of, what do you call it, freeboard in that pipe, which is creating the issue. Is that exactly how you see it?
So there's not enough, the pipe's too big.
Thanks.
At the moment until that full flow's on there. Definitely. And so we've learned our lesson from that, and for C2 and C3 we're putting in 2 pipes. So the smaller pipe, 2 same size pipes, they can cope with the flows, and then we'll use the second pipe once it's fully built to try and prevent that long residence time.
Martin, can I just ask you a question about the high water users? You've sent out about 72 high water user letters. And what's the result of that? Are they just high water users, end of story, or have people come back, or we double checked up and saying, hey, there is a major leak, or this is happening? There's no, where does it go from there? You just leave it?
They leave come back and say, oh, we've had a leak. Is there any remission? Or I think we've got one or 2 currently where people with health issues are asking for relief. But we haven't got we've got no process or policy to allow relief for any other reason than a leak.
Okay, thank you.
So it's challenging.
Just for your information, Mr. Chair, my brother was one of those, not me for a change, and it was in his new development, and they hadn't clamped up one of the new pipes properly under a clay surface. He said it was on the surface, no sign of it, but I think the letter he got was that they were using enough water for something like 300 and something odd people. And it's a lock-up storage shed, so there's no one living there. So he was greatly appreciated the letter, so that they went looking for it because there was no sign.
Wow.
So it's good.
Okay. And another event obviously was the incident at the TA wastewater treatment plant over the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd of August. Which has caused non-compliant effluent to enter the Mangapico stream. And you've all been aware of that, and the incident report is currently with the Regional Council to review and consider what actions or investigations they consider appropriate. So we're just sitting and waiting for them to decide the next steps. And one other thing I've got is the Mangataltree Marai. We decided, we put the bore in, so that's 90% complete now. The bore's in, and the water pipes have been put in a new tank, and is being commissioned and tested. Should be complete this week.
It was quick.
Yes. we're all ready to go. We're just waiting
Yeah.
for approval. Yeah. Yeah. So that is, any other questions?
Jim?
Just and I appreciate everybody's really stretched out at the moment, but just wondering in terms of the water saving services, the comment that you've got on in your report, but bearing in mind the comments from the regional council recently, and I've noticed a number of people are ringing me and saying, why isn't council subsidising rainwater tanks and setting up tanks? And I'm just wondering whether between the Waters Group and Comms, whether we couldn't actually set out a fact sheet, I suppose, that water tanks don't necessarily save water if you're connected to the mains, and the pros and cons of actually having water tanks, because obviously there is potentially a financial saving for the people that put it in, but it certainly has negative impacts on the network. So it just seems to me that if we had a fact sheet that we could send out to people and say, well, this is likely what it's going to cost. It doesn't actually save water, but you can save some money, but the rest of the consumers are going to have to pay for it in the infrastructure. But it just seems to me that there's a lot of misinformation out there that water tanks all of a sudden miraculously save water. If you're on a tank and you're not worried about your tank running out because you can just turn on the mains, then you're not going to save any water. So yeah, I was just wondering if we could get something pulled together that would actually be able to be handed out to the public so that they could make an informed decision rather than just basically hearsay and rhetoric that it's actually a good thing.
I've got some things that I'd like to contribute to that conversation though, because I'm in favour of rainwater tanks. They don't necessarily have to be linked to, you know, like the household supply or the main supply. I mean, the thing that I like about it is that I collect that water and I can use it on my garden when there's water restrictions. So it's got nothing to do with being able to use it in my own house. And in fact, the research shows that the big increase in consumption of water over the summer is for outdoor use. And so I mean, I think it would be great if councils acknowledged that people that are using water from a rainwater source to water their gardens means that there's less pressure on the public water reserves. Yeah. And it doesn't create issues with the network if it's not connected. You know, to those sort of, that reticulated service, yeah. So I think I'd really like that to be covered in any information that's sent out.
Yeah, I think the Smart Water Services are organising a roadshow that they did a couple of years ago on rainwater tank use, and they'll be coming round all the Waikato district councils with that roadshow to talk to councils and to the public who want to come on rainwater tanks. So.
You know, like if there was the opportunity for people to buy those kind of tanks as a bulk order, like this is some other councils have done, you know, you get a big discount, so it's a lot cheaper for you to put it in, you know, like, but it still doesn't need to be connected to the council system.
Thank you. Andrew's got a question.
Not so much a question, although you can comment on it, but I think the point is not whether it's connected to the network or not, but the point is that if a lot of people get tanks and use them for whatever reason, being it water in the garden or not, total volume of usage goes down through the network. Therefore, either volumetric charges have to go up or network charges have to go up to cover the cost. And the point is that council still has to supply sufficient water when there's a drought. So, yeah, there's a bunch of issues. I've got no problem with people putting in tanks to water their gardens. I think that's probably good, and maybe the water's even better than, you know, hasn't got chemicals in it. But it's having a look at the whole thing overall is what's important.
I agree there's pros and cons, and you say there's no chemicals in it, it's probably even better because it'll have birchit in it, so you've got fertiliser as well. So, but look, just a matter of having a documented, the pros and cons. I'm not arguing that it needs to be slanted one way or the other, but, you know, just in a quick head calculation, if we've got 20,000 connections and it's costing people 10 grand a time to put one in, if everybody puts one in, 200 million. If we invested that in the network, you wouldn't have to worry about tanks.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Luke.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, just quickly, do we need to have this conversation at the moment? Because we're looking at Three Waters,
Yeah.
and we're going to be getting guidance
Yeah.
at some point in time what we will be able to do. Unfortunately, as a council, we might not have the ability to make some of those decisions that we're taking.
That's true. Thanks, Luke. Hazel?
And I would just like to say that I grew up with 2 water tanks to survive through the whole thing, and with a family of 5, and we did it. But the other thing now, since I'm living in town, is that I'm only one person living in my household. I can make a tank full of water cover the whole year if that was what it was going to be. And so I'm liking Lou's comments that we think about it, so that when if we're going to get into some new organisation delivering our water, I can say, well, actually, I've got enough water here. You know, and I don't know, because there's a lot of senior citizens, or not even necessarily senior citizens, people who have actually lived under that way of life of having the tank water on their farms, because we couldn't get it out of the well because we were on a peat farm. So, you know, we had to rely on the tank water all the time. And I see this a good argument, but we need to plan it. And as I agree with what Jim has said, let's get the plan out to the people and discuss it much more, taking into account the fact that you know, you can live off that water depending on the number in your household. I can't say with my current occupants that it would have lasted more than a week, but
Thanks, Hazel. Is there anything else on Martin's report before we go to the next one? All right. Oh, Bruce.
Martin, how big a concern are the swimming pool issues with, what is it, if 13% of people empty their pools monthly? Well, why do they do that? There seems to be a lot of water used, otherwise our waters must be too cheap for them to afford to be able to just, or empty it.
Yeah, I assume that's people with the smaller pools, not
Smaller
large
pools.
ones. So the pop-up pools that they empty because the water gets dirty and the filtration's not as good. So it's not a major issue, I think, but rather they wouldn't do it when we're in a drought.
Right,
Yep.
yeah. Educate them.
Any questions from the Zoomers? Are you hearing us okay?
Yeah, we are now. It was the start of the meeting was a little bit dim, but Sam's
Yes.
fixed it for us, which is
We've
cool.
had Paul in to tweak it a bit, and we're going to, at morning tea time, we're going to reboot it. So try and get it fixed. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Claire.
I've got a couple of other questions.
Okay.
Yeah, Martin, there was a report that, you know, the water savings advisors role's been discontinued because it wasn't used enough. But will there be some sort of advisory service available? It looks like there would be, so that people will still have that open to them if they think they need it.
There's not a person now who will go around and advise people. They'll be able to get advice from the website or via the phone, but there's not that a person visiting. Both Hamilton and Waikato District Council stopped using that, and we were the only ones funding that position to do that. And so it ended in June. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a reasonable amount of information on the website, and like if someone rang and talked to a staff member, that they could probably get some reasonable
Yes,
advice.
they'll be able to get all that advice still
Yeah.
on the phone or the website, but we won't be visiting.
Yeah, oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think as long as there's some advisory service available, yeah. And I had another question about the stormwater, but have we covered that yet, or is it too early to ask it? Or? Yeah. No, so it mentioned that some modelling's been done, and I was interested in the scenario that's being adopted, that's guiding that work, you know, because there's different scenarios of the intensity of rain events you know, it's all linked to the climate change models. And I think that we did get some complaints or some bad feedback with some previous work that we did, because we might have chosen a scenario that was probably a bit more adverse or something. And so I think we need to be careful that we can justify the scenario that we do actually do the work on.
I think the intent will be for us to come to council to communicate with you how the stormwater modelling is going and hazard flood mapping, so you can be more informed and make decisions in due course.
Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder, please, with a recommendation of the report presented by Martin. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Philip. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Tab 7, the Three Waters Plan, and Martin, you're it again. Thank you.
So again, we've got a report there on the delivery plan, which we'll take as read. Again, just a reminder that the Service Delivery Committee meeting on the 18th of August, the committee delegated the signing of the delivery plan to the Chief Executive. And so this is just for information only, this report, and a recommendation is not required. So as you recall, we've got a total of $6.8 million stimulus funding, and an agreement has been reached between the regional councils to share that as per the local share, and a letter's gone out from all the mayors to the Department of Internal Affairs with that agreement. So we've got the $6.8 million. So the delivery plan lists our intended projects that we wish to fund with the $6.8 million. And most of these projects have been taken out of year 1 of the LTP, which you'll hear later on this morning. So our proposed capital projects are increased reservoir storage at the Parallel Road water treatment plant. The original size was a 1 megalitre reservoir at that new site, and we've increased that to 1.5 megalitres with $500,000 of this money. And we've got Kikiki alternate water supply. So we've got the 2 bores in Kikiki. With the new regulator coming on board, we're picking they're going to be under severe pressure from being safe bores and secure bores. So we start looking at an alternate pipe from Tiamutu to Kikiki to supply water there. Obviously, we won't be able to turn that on until we've got Parallel Road supplying water to TA. But certainly start that project underway.
So this is a supplementary supply going back to Kiki to support those bores?
Yeah, or to ultimately replace them if they're deemed unsecure in the future.
That's a good
a risk there that they may be.
Yeah, well, good one.
And then there's a SCADA and telemetry upgrade project, which is 2.2 million. And again, that's come out of year 1 of the proposed LTP, and that's to replace our SCADA and telemetry systems across the district, which are old and antiquated and need replacing. And then we've got operational projects, which are drinking water support plans. So
Can I just come in with a question there?
Support plans for projects.
Martin,
Yep.
Roger, yeah, I hear you.
Yep.
Just waiting. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I just wondered what SCADA stands for.
Supervisory control and data acquisition.
I wish I'd never asked now.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Swedish carve for a minute.
Yeah. So that's the system that controls
So
all the plants.
explain what it is.
Say that again, Martin.
No. Yeah. Supervisory control and data acquisition. So we can control and supervise all of our plants remotely on the SCADA, and it collects all the data back into a central place for us to run our reports and show compliance. So it's
Okay.
computer systems, basically.
Martin, just a question from me. We're going through the budgets for the LTP, so this is something that has to go. It can't be cut. You know, you can't take it out of the funding mechanism and the capital expenditure. It's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely required.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the date for the expected hookup with the pipe from Parallel Road to Tiamutu? Just as a side question, do you have a date?
Mid next year, so after the end of summer,
Okay.
somewhere June time
Oh, yeah.
next year, but not in time for the summer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So June 2021.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
And then we've got the drinking water support plan project, which is we have to have support plans for all of our 4 water schemes, which need renewing every 5 years. We've got a district-wide wastewater sludge management project, and that's to come up with a strategy how we're going to deal with sludge in the future. Currently, Cambridge is being dewatered on site into geobags, and TMO2 is filling up the area we had put aside for it rapidly. So we need to know what we're going to do. So this plan will tell us what we need to do in the future with our sludge. District-wide leak and condition investigation on the water supply. So that's ongoing. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just taking the funding out of year 1, the LTP to do that. Same with the district-wide wastewater pipe condition assessment and infiltration study. We've got drinking water compliance, surface take monitoring and assessment. So every 5 years we have to do an assessment of the catchment for all our water supplies. So for TMO2 it will be the Tahi catchment. For Cambridge it's the lake catchment, all that area, to ascertain how safe that is from any contaminants getting in there. We've then got the sub-regional wastewater detailed business case and the sub-regional 3 water project, and also in there some money set aside to help pay for the work we're doing during this reform collaboration work. We've entered into agreement with Solgum to work collaboratively with councils in the district, and Solgum have put some experts in to help us understand what the outcomes for us in reform. So they'll be starting on that.
I'm really curious about this because since I've watched the list of projects that have been dropped off the LTP, and I sort of take a little bit more interest in why does it cost $1,300,000 to actually sit down and talk?
So that's the 1.3 million includes the detailed business case,
Yeah.
our portion of that, which is 375,000. So the business case for the sub-regional is over $1 million. The cost of the business case, the amount of experts and consultants you need to.
So the experts in charges, the experts got to pay them.
Yes. Yep. So PricewaterhouseCoopers are leading writing the business case, which has been presented to council.
Martin, I wondered whether it would have been better to have had our share as 375, because that looked like that total cost has been borne by Waipa, the 1.3.
Yep. So,
You're
all
right.
those 3 things.
Yep.
There's our share
Okay.
of those projects. Yep. Yes. So there's Waikato District Council and Hamilton are also a 50% share on average, and Waikato and Waipa are 25% each, more or less, of the cost of that business case.
Question, Lou?
Just a question to you, Mr. Chair. The funding for this, as I understand it, is from the MOU. This is from the government?
Yeah.
If I'm correct, so this is not something that we're taking out or utilising in our LTP. We cannot use it anywhere else. You have to actually have a designated plan and then give accounts, as I believe, as we complete these projects, then you'll get the continued funding. Am I correct in that statement? As I understand it, you get the initial funding, and then later, as we complete these projects, we will then receive progress payments as they go along. So it's not something that we're having to fund out of our rates as an individual thing. Is that correct?
So for the delivery plan for the $6.8 million, once it's been approved, we have to submit the delivery plan by the end of September, and then they review and approve it by the end of October. They then the current plan is you then get 50% of the funds to start working on all those projects, and the rest of the money is then released on milestone performance. So when you've completed 50% of the projects, the next money will be released, and then all projects need to be complete by March in 2021. 2022. But you get 50% of the money up front, and the rest will be paid on how well you're completing the projects.
So you're right, Lou. The money was allocated by central government, and it was over to the individual councils throughout the country to actually come up with their projects for approval and sign off by DIA. So effectively, you're right, this money is not ratepayer funds, it's tax funds, so it's still a cost. And there could have been other projects we selected. It's not, government didn't tie it to these projects, we've chosen them. If we didn't use this money, it would be ratepayer money because we've got to do that job. So it's great to have it, but I think everybody around the room sucks their breath when they think that's only 25% of the total cost for that project. But it is government funding.
Yep, and as I said, most of these projects have been taken out of year one of the LTP, which has taken $6.8 million out to reduce the rate burden. Yep. And the last two are two stormwater ones, to continue with our district-wide comprehensive stormwater discharge consent, and to continue with the stormwater modelling and flood hazard mapping. The projects we're proposing. We've also got it's a moving beast, and at the moment we've got to come up with some contingency projects as well in case these ones don't go ahead. The DIA want to see what else we would put forward if they didn't as a contingency, so they know what they are, so we're not picking them on the fly. The DIA have appointed reviewers for the delivery plan, and our reviewers are Ian Garside, who's a familiar name, used to work for Beckers and Jacobs, and John Mackey, who has been in local government water business for a long time. I think he was the Dunedin water manager and a Christchurch water services manager, and more recently was the acting chief executive of Water New Zealand. So those two people will review and approve our delivery plan and be the ones we have to report to as we go through the project.
So the deputy engineer over here at the Tiamuru Borough Council prior to 1989.
Or John Mackey, yeah. So hopefully they're friendly people.
Missed out of his job in the reorganisation, so maybe not.
He's gone on to a successful career, so I'm sure he doesn't hold that against us.
He should be full of knowledge, Jim.
Yeah, and my understanding they're also the reviewers for Wellington Water, and so I don't know how far their stretch is, whether it's all councils in between those two or just a few each. So I think that's basically, I've got an explanation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, team? So there's a recommendation there that the report, the Three Waters program, is presented by Martin, be received. Looking for a move and a second, please, Jim. Thank you, and Claire. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Oh, okay. Morning, Sally. You got something else, Martin? No.
Good morning. Morena, can you hear me?
You're right. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Today we're going to have a chance to discuss the government's opportunity to do consultation on two hard to recycle plastics and 7 small plastic items that are single use. So the government has been focusing on plastics due to the high concern expressed from the general public in many different surveys that they've done about plastics in our environment and the amount of plastics we're using, but also because of the collapse of the international recycling market, of which we're very familiar, and the impacts that's had across New Zealand. Last year, the Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor completed a report looking at the plastics issue with a whole range of ways to tackle that problem, and this is one of the outcomes of that report, more of a policy-led phase-out action. But also the government is looking at lots of other things which we've already talked about, like the container return scheme, which is like the cash for cans, And they're also increasing a lot of funding for onshore recycling infrastructure processing. So they're looking at lots of different levels and ways of working, but this policy setting one is another one that we can have a say on. So there's the two different proposals, as you would have read. And proposal 1 is basically about phasing out plastics number 3 and 6 from production and manufacture and importing into New Zealand. So for us, from the council perspective, one good thing about that is we've already said that we can't recycle those. So it's really backing up the decision that we've already made. We couldn't find a place to recycle them, and the government is also saying it's virtually impossible to recycle these products. So if it was impossible for anybody to buy products off the supermarket shelf, it just helps us on our sorting line that there's less stuff that needs to be pulled off by our sorters. And also it helps us streamline our communications out to our community. So it is something they're having to get their head around, like what is a 3? What's a likely number 3 plastic product? What's a likely number 6 plastic product? So if they just were not there on the supermarket shelf, that would make that a lot easier for us on our recycling side and reduce our contamination. These aren't large volumes of plastics. So from the nationwide audit, a plastic number 3 is only a 0.02. So there's not a lot of those plastics out there, but they do create a contamination stream for our PET number 1, clear, which is our best plastic. So removing that slight contamination, which is very, very hard to identify visually, would be a benefit for us. So on the plastics 3 and 6, which I've just summarised there, is there any comments or feedback on the consultation that I shared with you and the answers to the questions dealing with those?
Can I ask what the alternative is, Sally?
So sorry, in the room, I'm really struggling to hear. So I know that Councillor Regan can hear, but I'm really struggling. So if you could speak up your volume. And
what are the alternatives if you remove these 3s and 6s?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of detail about that in the consultation document. So for number 3, the most common use of a number 3 plastic is cracker trays and biscuit trays, but the majority of those cracker and biscuit trays are already PET number 1. So that one is quite simple. With number 6, that's polystyrene. And so there's 2 different types of polystyrene. There's the inflated polystyrene, which is more around packaging. So like around computers and stuff like that. And so some of the alternatives there would be cardboard molded packaging. So you may, if you've bought any electronics recently, you may have noticed they did come in cardboard molded. That packaging around high value items, there is quite a lot of detail in there about needing to test any alternatives fully. Like we don't want to take away a packaging option and then have more waste because more products are damaged. So within the consultation document, I strongly suggested that they work with those stakeholders in the manufacturing and packaging industry around timelines and testing and alternatives and things like that. In the household setting, in the recycling and the kind of grocery setting, the biggest number 6 that we have is 6-pack yogurts. And the reason they like that is because that's PVC, that's polystyrene, but it's not inflated, it's flat, is because it snaps and creates a click. So they did outline some alternatives which are already on the market in New Zealand and overseas. So one example for the 6-pack yogurt is that they come in a 4-pack of PET number 1, but they're enclosed in a cardboard wraparound. So instead of having them clicked together, they are separated but enclosed in cardboard. What's important is the consultation document, when identifying these 2 plastics, they went through to analyse ones that did have ready-to-market alternative plastics or other packaging models.
Thank you. Marcus, you have a question?
Yeah, it's a great document. And
oh, I've lost you, Marcus.
Is that okay? There we go. Yeah, it's a good document, and I agree with your statements. every day I get computer stuff delivered, and it's always good to see that some of my stuff now is coming in the cardboard wrapped instead of the polystyrene, but there's still a lot of stuff with polystyrene. But also the bit of plastics that they use to wrap the products that are in the cardboard stuff, I find that a bit of a waste of time. Like, you know, your cell phone chargers are wrapped in plastic, you have to unwrap and stuff. Like, why is that? And is there any comments on that in there? But yeah, no, I think I fully support your comments.
Okay. No, there isn't any comments on over wrapping of other products, but hopefully that might come under their product stewardship scheme, where whatever you create, you become responsible for. But it's interesting that you're in the industry and you're seeing the change as well, which is really great. But no, there isn't anything on the use of soft plastics, except, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Sally, no question, but just want to congratulate you on your work. It's awesome. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much.
Claire's got a question.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I think you're doing fantastic work, and happy to see these plastics looking like they're going to be going into the sunset. But my question is, I hope there's going to be work done on the other microfibers that are also polluting our oceans. So, you know, these are fabrics, I guess, that, you know, polar fleece and other synthetics. Is there any work being done on that? Because that must be a massive source of pollution as well.
Yes, you are correct. All I've seen from my position is there's a lot of research happening around microfibers. So at the conference last year, there was a couple of people from Scion. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the state scientist place. So they have been doing some monitoring of beaches and looking at microplastics. So apart from I think the government is definitely aware of that issue, but they haven't identified a work stream specifically that I have seen. But I guess the only part of this consultation that deals with it is being very, very strong against the oxidizable plastics. So that's plastics with additives that helps them break down in the environment, which is not actually what we want, because they don't break down into soil or anything useful. It's just a tiny plastic. So that was one that I think we want to support strongly.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other phase, the proposal 2, should I move on to that, Councillor Webber?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about 7 small single-use plastic items. Straws, cotton buds, drinking stirrers, produce bags, plastic cups, excluding 1, 2 or 5, which are readily recyclable, produce stickers and tableware. So these would be items that we can't really recycle anyway because they are too small. So just with the physical nature of recycling, they fall through the gaps. So for us at council, this would probably become more of a litter issue. So, you know, very small things get chucked towards a litter bin and get blown away, or they fly off a cafe table and they go into the gutter and into the stormwater. So it's a bit of a recycling, but also a bit of a litter issue. We strongly recognised in the consultation that there are certain members of our community who 100% need straws, and it's very clear that should be exempt for them. Yeah, so any comments on that part of it or questions?
Comments, please.
Mr. Chairman, look, I fully support it. There's no problem. But I just wonder about single-use produce bags. Is that bread bags and all of those things? Are we saying that they'll have to go to paper?
So no, that's more specifically around fruit and veg bags. So within the produce section, so not bakery items or other parts of the supermarket, so rice or pasta. It's those no-handled small bags that you use within the fresh fruit and veg produce section. So again, they wanted to identify plastic products that have an alternative. So, you know, the transition has kind of been made with the shopping bag at the checkout, and so they're looking to make that similar kind of change at the produce section, where everyone gets 4 or 5 small reusable produce bags. They're one of the items that I gave away for Plastic Free July, and lots of people really wanted to have a go with those. So with that, in the consultation document, they had only noted natural fibre produce bags, but I put in the recommendation that synthetic produce bags, but acknowledging what Claire said, that there's some issues with microfibers, but that they're a lot more affordable sometimes than hemp or canvas. Well, they wouldn't use canvas, I can't remember the cotton bags. So just to allow more people in our community to access the cost of the replacement. So just to try and ease the transition.
Thank you. Philip.
Yeah, through the chair. Sally, I live in a rural area and I'm forever picking up Subway and KFC in particular on our roadside. Do you work with the fast food joints and things like that to make things?
I haven't worked with any of the fast food joints yet, no, but I do know it is a problem. Yeah, I'm not, yeah. I guess I'm more of a litter and a street cleaning issue. So yeah, hopefully there has been some small steps from McDonald's. They've signed on to one of the plastics and packaging commitments. So that's got quite a short time frame. So it will be interesting to see what they change within their systems there.
Yeah,
I can have a look more into it, Philip, and see what else is going on and get back to you perhaps.
It does tend to be KFC and Subways, but any McDonald's wrapping does seem to be more environmentally friendly or recyclable material.
Okay.
Like that we see a lot more now in cafes and you know, we get our lunch and things here too now. It's all, you know, paper and cardboard and things like that. So
yeah, I think the cups and the straws are a problem. Yeah, because they're plasticky.
Sally, in our last community board in Cambridge, we had a letter from a lady who'd picked up in 1 week 190 masks and rubber gloves in the Countdown supermarket in Cambridge. Those are a big issue. I know that we're not going to, you know, tell people they're going to put them in the bin because, you know, people just don't do that at certain times. But gosh, that's a major issue, isn't it?
Yes, that has been a major issue. So the ministry has also identified that, and they've created some Instagram and Facebook messages about what to do with your disposable COVID-related health protecting items. And so I have shared those with the comms teams, and they're going to be scheduling those to be able to be for us to use those national resources as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? A good report. Always love listening to your passion, Sally. Thank you for that. So I have a recommendation there, A and B, and looking for a move.
I'm happy to move, Graham.
Thank
Susan.
you. And Hazel seconds. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sally.
Okay, thanks. See ya.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to break now for morning tea. We're back on air at 10:15. And Sam, how are we going with the sound? Everything's going. Paul's going to come in and reboot. Okay, so we'll see you back at 10:15. Thank you.
Testing audio. Oh, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Yeah, I think we notice there's a bit of an echo in chambers. So I think when you fix one side, the other side tends to have a negative effect. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Test 1 2 2 1 1 2.
Testing, testing, 1 2 3. Sound better? Sorry, yeah, it was on mute. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hey, thanks everybody. Welcome back to the meeting. We're in the public excluded. What's that? Yes, I've got that in front of me. Yes, I've got that. Yeah. So I have a recommendation to go into the public excluded, please. A mover and seconder. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Elwyn. All those in favour say aye. Against.